This room isn't yours, I noted. The alien queen smiled and answered, I know. Then Commander Sarah Chen adjusted her uniform one last time before stepping into the transport pod. The gleaming hull of the Zephyrian mothership stretched endlessly before her, its crystalline surface reflecting the distant stars. This was humanity's biggest diplomatic moment in decades. Remember, Commander, crackled the voice of Admiral Martinez through her earpiece. We need this alliance. The Zephyrians control 3 major trade routes. One wrong move and Earth's economy suffers. Sarah nodded, even though no one could see her. Understood, Admiral. Standard diplomatic protocol. Be respectful, follow their customs, and secure the trade agreement. The transport pod docked with a soft hiss. Sarah stepped out, followed by her small team of diplomats and translators. The Zephyrian corridor was beautiful but strange. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, and the air smelled like flowers mixed with metal. A tall alien approached them. His skin was pale green, and his large eyes reflected the corridor's light. Like mirrors, welcome, humans. I'm Counselor Zelamith. Queen Veltar awaits you in the diplomatic chamber. Sarah smiled politely. Thank you, Counselor. We are honored by this meeting. They walked through winding corridors filled with other aliens. Sarah noticed some pointing at her team and whispering. She had studied Zephyrian culture for months. They were known for being very formal and following rules exactly. Every diplomatic meeting had specific procedures that must be followed. The group stopped at a massive door decorated with swirling patterns. 2 guards stood on either side, their weapons gleaming. Counselor Zelamith pressed his hand against a glowing panel, and the door slid open. Sarah expected to see the formal diplomatic chamber she had studied in the briefing materials. Instead, she found herself in what looked like a personal bedroom. Soft fabrics hung from the ceiling. Strange musical instruments sat in corners. A large bed dominated one side of the room, and personal items were scattered everywhere in them. Center of this chaos sat Queen Veltara on a throne-like chair. She was beautiful in an alien way, with silver skin that seemed to glow and long hair that moved like water. Her eyes were the color of deep space, dark and mysterious. Welcome, Commander Chen, the Queen said in perfect English. Her voice was like music. Please, sit. Sarah looked around, confused. There were no formal diplomatic chairs, no conference table, no recording devices. Just cushions scattered on the floor and the Queen's personal belongings everywhere. Your Majesty, Sarah began carefully, I believe there has been some mistake. This appears to be your private quarters, not the diplomatic chamber. The Queen's lips curved into a small smile. There is no mistake, Commander. This is exactly where I wanted to meet. Sarah felt her team shifting uncomfortably behind her. Dr. Williams, her chief advisor, whispered, Commander, this violates every diplomatic protocol we know. Sarah kept her voice steady and polite. Your Majesty, with respect, our records show that formal diplomatic meetings should take place in the designated diplomatic chamber. This room appears to be your personal space. The Queen's smile grew wider. You are very observant. Commander Chen, you are correct. This room is not the diplomatic chamber. This room is not where we should be meeting according to your protocols. Sarah waited for an explanation, but the Queen simply looked at her with those deep, star-like eyes. The silence stretched between them like a bridge neither wanted to cross. First, I must note, Sarah said finally, that this room isn't yours to use for official meetings. According to interstellar diplomatic law, formal negotiations require neutral space. The Queen laughed, a sound like silver bells. I know, she said simply. Sarah's team exchanged worried glances. Lieutenant Torres, her security officer, stepped forward slightly. Sarah raised her hand to stop him. Something was happening here. Something beyond a simple breach of protocol. Your Majesty, Sarah said. If you know this violates diplomatic custom, why are we here? The Queen stood gracefully and walked to a window that showed the vast emptiness of space. Tell me, Commander Chen, what do you know about human diplomatic history? The question caught Sarah off guard. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, I don't understand. The relevance, humor me, the queen said without turning around. Your species has been negotiating with others for thousands of years. What makes humans different from other species? When they negotiate, Sarah thought carefully. This felt like a test, though she couldn't understand why. Humans tend to be flexible. We adapt to new situations. We try to find solutions that work for everyone. Interesting, the queen murmured. And when humans feel disrespected or cornered, what do? Sarah's heart began to beat faster. We fight back. We don't surrender easily. The queen turned around, her eyes bright with something Sarah couldn't identify. Yes, you fight hardest when you are pushed into a corner. When someone tries to take advantage of you, you become more determined, not less. Your Majesty, I'm not sure I follow. I have been studying your species for 8 months. Commander Chen, I have read every report, every analysis, every psychological profile that exists about humans. I have watched recordings of your diplomatic meetings with other species. I have learned your patterns. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Why? The queen walked back to her throne and sat down slowly. Because in 3 days, I must make a decision that will affect humanity's future in this galaxy. And I needed to understand what kind of species you really are. What kind of decision? Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. The answer: 3 other species have petitioned my empire to have humanity declared a juvenile species. They want us to treat you like children who need supervision. They claim humans are too dangerous, too unpredictable to be trusted with full independence. Sarah's blood ran cold. A juvenile species classification would mean the end of human expansion into space. It would mean other species controlling human trade, human colonies, human destiny. And you're testing us, Sarah said quietly. The queen nodded. I am testing you. This meeting, this room, this apparent insult to your diplomatic customs. It is all a test. I want to see how humans react when they are deliberately provoked. Do you become violent? Do you give up? Do you find a clever way to turn the situation to your advantage? Sarah looked at her team. They were watching her, waiting for her to decide how to respond. She realized that every word, every action from this moment forward would be analyzed and judged. The queen was still smiling, but now Sarah could see the intelligence behind those dark eyes. This was no simple diplomatic meeting. This was a trial, and humanity's future hung in the balance. How long do we have? Sarah asked. 48 hours. The queen replied. 48 hours to prove that humans deserve to be treated as equals in this galaxy. Sarah straightened her shoulders and looked directly into the queen's eyes. Then let the test begin. Sarah felt the weight of the queen's words settling over her like a heavy blanket. 48 hours to prove humanity deserved freedom. She looked at her team and saw the same mixture of fear and determination in their eyes. Your Majesty, Sarah said carefully, what exactly does this test involve? Queen Veltara gestured to the cushions scattered around the room. Please, sit. Let me explain what is happening here. Sarah and her team found places on the soft cushions. The informal setting felt wrong for such an important conversation. But Sarah was beginning to understand that nothing about this meeting was accidental. 3 months ago, the Queen began, representatives from the Corvani Empire, the Stellar Republic, and the Nexus Collective came to me with a petition. They claim that humans are too aggressive, too unpredictable to be trusted with independence in galactic affairs. Dr. Williams shifted uncomfortably. What evidence did they provide? The Queen's eyes glinted. They showed me recordings of human conflicts. They talked about your wars, your tendency to fight instead of surrender. They said humans are like children playing with dangerous toys. Lieutenant Torres clenched his fists. That's not fair. Every species has conflicts. True, the Queen agreed. But they made a compelling argument. They said that when humans feel threatened, they become irrational. They said you would rather destroy something than let someone else control it. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. Getting angry would only prove their point. And what did you think of their argument? I found it incomplete, the Queen said. So I decided to conduct my own investigation. The Queen stood and walked to a wall. Panel. She touched it, and the wall became transparent. showing a room filled with alien observers. Sarah counted at least 20 different species, all watching the diplomatic chamber with intense interest. They have been here for 3 days. The Queen explained, watching, recording, analyzing every human action since your ship arrived. Sarah's team looked around nervously. The realization that they had been observed from the moment they entered the ship was unsettling. What have you learned? Sarah asked. The Queen smiled. Many interesting things. Your Lieutenant Torres checked the structural integrity of the docking bay when you arrived. Not because he was suspicious, but because he wanted to make sure your ship wouldn't damage their station. Dr. Williams asked about Zephyrian cultural preferences before choosing his greeting. You, Commander Chen, spent 10 minutes learning the names of every crew member who helped dock your ship. Sarah frowned. Those are just basic courtesies. Exactly, the Queen said. The other species told me humans are selfish and aggressive. But I observed the opposite. You show consideration for others even when no one is watching, even when you gain nothing from it. Counselor Zelamith entered the room carrying a tray of strange-looking food and drinks. As he served them, Sarah noticed his hands were shaking slightly. Counselor Zelamith is nervous, the Queen observed. He is part of the test. I told him to make small mistakes while serving you. Watch how your team responds. Sarah watched as Zelamith accidentally spilled some blue liquid on Dr. Williams' sleeve. Instead of complaining, Dr. Williams immediately asked if Zelamith was okay and helped clean up the spill. Interesting, the Queen murmured. The Corvani representative told me humans would become angry at such clumsiness. They said you would see it as disrespect. It was an accident, Dr. Williams said simply. Accidents happen. The Queen made a note on a small device. This is the 15th test scenario I have observed. In each case, your team has responded with patience and understanding. This contradicts what I was told about human nature. Sarah began to understand the scope of what was happening. How many tests have you conducted since your ship arrived? 47 small tests. The delayed docking permission, the confusing directions to this room, the temperature being too warm in your quarters, the food that was slightly different from what you ordered. Each one was designed to create stress and observe your reactions. Lieutenant Torres looked surprised. We just thought you were busy or that there were communication errors. Another interesting response, the Queen noted. You assume positive intent instead of deliberate disrespect. The Stellar Republic representative said humans always assume the worst about others. Sarah felt a growing sense of understanding. You're not just testing how we react to problems, you're testing our character. Correct. The Queen said, character is what matters in galactic leadership. Any species can follow rules when everything is going well. But how do you behave when things go wrong? How do you treat those who serve you? How do you handle disappointment? The wall panel chimed softly. The Queen touched it, and an alien voice spoke in a language Sarah didn't recognize. Ah, the Queen said. The next phase of testing is ready. Next phase? Sarah asked. The Queen's expression became more serious. The tests so far have been small, personal things. Now we move to larger challenges. I need to see how humans respond to crisis, to threats, to impossible choices. What kind of challenges? Dr. Williams asked, starting in 1 hour. You will face a series of scenarios. Some will test your problem-solving abilities. Others will test your moral judgment. A few will test your willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. Sarah felt her heart rate increase. Will we be in danger? The situations will be simulated, but your stress will be real. Your decisions will be real. And the observers will be watching every choice you make. The Queen walked to the window again, looking out at the stars. I must tell you something, Commander Chen. The 3 species that petitioned against humanity, they are not just observers. They are participants. What do you mean? They will be taking the same tests. If they perform better than your team, their petition will be approved. If your team performs better, humanity gains full independence. Sarah felt a chill. This is a competition. Yes, the Queen said simply. A competition for the right to be treated as equals in this galaxy. Lieutenant Torres stood up. That's not fair. They've had time to prepare. They know about the tests. The Queen turned back to them. Actually, they don't. I told them they We're here to observe human failure. They don't know they're being tested too. Sarah saw the cleverness in the Queen's plan. So we're all being judged equally, but only we know it's a test. Exactly. The question is, does knowing about the test change how you behave? Do you become actors playing a role? Or do you remain true to your nature? Dr. Williams adjusted his glasses nervously. What happens if we fail? The Queen's expression grew sad. Then humanity will be placed under galactic supervision. Your colonies will be managed by other species. Your trade will be controlled. Your expansion into space will be limited. You will be treated as children until you prove you have grown up. Sarah looked at her team. They were scared but determined. She felt proud of them. And if we succeed, Sarah asked, then humanity joins the galactic community as a full member. You will have the right to govern yourselves, to make your own decisions, to succeed or fail on your own merit. The Queen walked back to her throne. The choice is yours. Commander Chen, you can withdraw from the test. You can accept supervision and live safely under the guidance of older species. Or you can prove that humans deserve to stand as equals among the stars. Sarah didn't hesitate. We'll take the test. The Queen smiled, and for the first time, it seemed genuinely warm. I hoped you would say that. The real test begins now. 1 hour later, Sarah and her team stood in a large chamber with smooth metal walls. The Queen sat on a floating platform above them, watching with those deep, star-like eyes. Around the room's edges, the alien observers pressed against transparent barriers, their strange faces focused on every movement. The first test, Queen Veltara announced, is problem-solving under pressure. The floor beneath their feet began to glow with complex patterns. Numbers and symbols appeared in the air, spinning and changing rapidly. A timer showed 30 minutes counting down. Your ship's navigation system has failed, the Queen explained. These calculations will determine if you can return to Earth safely. But there's a problem. The mathematical system is Zephyrian, not human. You must learn it as you solve it. Sarah looked at the floating symbols. They meant nothing to her, but she had to stay calm. Dr. Williams, you're our math expert. What do you see? Dr. Williams studied the symbols carefully. The patterns repeat every 7 units. That might be their base number system. Meanwhile, in another part of the chamber, Sarah could see 3 other teams working on identical problems. The Corvani team moved with military precision, their leader barking orders. The Stellar Republic team worked in perfect silence, each member focused on a different section. The Nexus Collective team seemed to be arguing about the best approach. Lieutenant Torres, Sarah said quietly, watch how the other teams work. Look for patterns in their methods. As they worked, Sarah noticed something interesting. The Corvani team was making progress, but their leader was becoming frustrated with slower members. The Stellar Republic team was efficient, but they weren't sharing information with each other. The Nexus Collective team had stopped arguing and was now ignoring each other completely. Dr. Williams, Sarah said, share what you've learned with everyone. Don't work alone. But Commander, Dr. Williams whispered, if I share our methods, the other teams might copy us. Sarah smiled. Trust me on this one. Dr. Williams began explaining the number system to the whole team. Soon, even Lieutenant Torres was helping with calculations. Their progress accelerated dramatically. The Queen made notes on her device. Sarah noticed that the observers were pointing at the human team and talking excitedly among themselves. With 5 minutes left, the human team solved their navigation problem. The other teams were still struggling. Interesting, the Queen said. The human team finished first, but they used a collaborative approach. The other teams focused on individual excellence. The floor patterns disappeared, and new ones took their place. This time, they showed images of different planets and star systems. Second test, the Queen announced, resource allocation. You must distribute limited supplies among 5 colonies. Each colony has different needs, but there are not enough resources for everyone. Sarah studied the problem. Colony A needed medical supplies after a plague. Colony B needed food after crop failure. Colony C needed building materials after a disaster. Colony D needed fuel for their generators. Colony E needed research equipment to continue important work. The other teams immediately began calculating which colonies would provide the best return on investment. Sarah heard the Corvani leader saying, "We save the military colonies first, they protect the others." The Stellar Republic team was running complex equations to determine which colonies contributed most to the economy. Sarah looked at her team. "What do you think?" "The logical choice is to save the colonies that can help the others," Dr. Williams said. But, Sarah prompted. "But people are dying in Colony A. Children are hungry in Colony B. Logic says to sacrifice them for the greater good. But it feels wrong." Lieutenant Torres nodded. "In the military, we're taught that you never leave someone behind if you can help it." Sarah made her decision. "We find a way to help everyone." "But Commander," Dr. Williams protested, "there aren't enough resources." "Then we change the rules," Sarah said. "We look for alternatives." Sarah studied the problem again. Instead of just distributing the given resources, she looked for ways to make them stretch further. She suggested that Colony E could modify their research to help develop new medical treatments for Colony A. Colony C could use local materials combined with the limited supplies to build temporary shelters. Colony D could share power with nearby colonies. The Queen watched with interest as Sarah's team developed a complex but comprehensive plan that helped all 5 colonies survive. "Time," the Queen announced. The other teams had made their choices. The Corvani saved the military colonies. The Stellar Republic saved the most economically valuable ones. The Nexus Collective couldn't agree and had saved only 3 colonies. The human team chose to save everyone, the Queen observed. Even though it required much more work and creativity, the test continued for hours. Each challenge was harder than the last. They faced moral dilemmas, leadership crises, and impossible deadlines. Sarah watched as the other teams began to show signs of stress. The Corvani team started making mistakes. As their leader became more demanding, the Stellar Republic team became so focused on efficiency that they stopped communicating entirely. The Nexus Collective team fell apart as members blamed each other for failures. But Sarah's team seemed to grow stronger with each challenge. They supported each other, shared ideas, and found creative solutions to impossible problems. During a brief break, Sarah overheard 2 observers talking in heavily accented English. "The humans are different," one said. "They don't just solve problems. They help each other solve problems." "Yes," the other agreed. "And they keep trying even when the situation seems hopeless." The final test of the day was the most challenging yet. The Queen announced it with a serious expression. "Your ship has been damaged in space. You can repair it, but only if one person stays behind to operate the repair systems manually. That person will not survive. Choose who makes the sacrifice." Sarah felt her heart sink. This was exactly the kind of impossible choice that had no good answer. She looked at her team. Lieutenant Torres stepped forward immediately. "I'll do it, Commander. It's my job to protect the mission." "No," Dr. Williams said. "I'm the oldest. I've lived my life." "That's not how we do this," Sarah said firmly. "We find another way, Commander," Lieutenant Torres said gently. "Sometimes there is no other way." Sarah studied the problem display. The repair required someone to stay in a dangerous area and manually operate controls. The radiation exposure would be fatal. "What if we take turns?" Sarah suggested. "Each person operates the controls for a short time, then switches out. The exposure would still be fatal," Dr. Williams said. "Just spread among all of us. Then we all share the risk," Sarah said. "We all take short turns. Maybe the total exposure won't be fatal if it's divided." The Queen watched with fascination as Sarah's team worked out a rotation system. They calculated exposure times, recovery periods, and backup plans. The other teams had already made their choices. Each had selected their least valuable member to sacrifice. "Time," the Queen announced. The tests were over. Sarah and her team stood together, exhausted but proud. They had faced every challenge without giving up, without sacrificing their values, and without turning on each other. The Queen floated down to their level. "You have completed the first phase of testing. Tomorrow, We begin the final evaluation. How do we do? Sarah asked. The Queen smiled mysteriously. That depends on what you think success means, Commander Chen. As they were escorted back to their quarters, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was just beginning. Sarah couldn't sleep that night. She lay in her quarters staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened, the tests, the observations, the way the Queen watched their every move. Something didn't feel right. She got up and walked to the small window in her room. Outside, the stars looked the same as they did from Earth, but somehow they felt different, more distant, more dangerous. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called out. Dr. Williams entered, looking as tired as she felt. Commander, I've been thinking about today's tests. What about them? They were too perfect. Dr. Williams said. Each test was designed to showcase exactly the qualities that make humans different from other species. It's like Queen Veltara already knew how we would respond. Sarah felt a spark of understanding. You think she's been studying us longer than she admitted? I think she's been studying all of us, Dr. Williams said. Humans, Corvani, Stellar Republic, Nexus Collective. She knew how each species would react to every situation. Sarah nodded slowly. So the question is, why? What's she really testing? Lieutenant Torres appeared in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't sleep either. I've been thinking about the observers. What about them? They're not just watching us randomly. They're taking notes at very specific moments, when we help each other, when we share information, when we refuse to give up. It's like they're looking for something particular. Sarah felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in her mind. She's not just testing our abilities. She's testing our character. But more than that, she's testing whether we can figure out what she's really doing. A test within a test, Dr. Williams murmured. Exactly, Sarah said. And I think I know what we need to do. The next morning, Sarah and her team were escorted to a different chamber. This one was smaller, more formal. The Queen sat at a simple table, no observers visible. Today's test is different, Queen Veltara announced. Today, you will be tested individually. Each of you will face a personal challenge in private. Sarah looked at her team. They seemed nervous but determined. However, the Queen continued. Before we begin, I have a question for you, Commander Chen. After yesterday's tests, what do you think I'm really evaluating? Sarah took a deep breath. This was her chance to show that humans could be as perceptive as any other species. Your Majesty, I don't think you're testing whether humans deserve independence. I think you're testing whether we're smart enough to realize that this whole situation is more complex than it appears. The Queen's eyebrows rose slightly. Interesting. Please continue. You've been studying all four species for months, maybe years. You already know how each of us responds to pressure, to moral dilemmas, to impossible choices. These tests aren't about discovering our nature. They're about something else. And what might that be? Sarah stood up and walked to the wall display. May I? The Queen nodded. Sarah touched the panel, and it showed a star map of the local galaxy. You said 3 species petitioned to have humans declared juvenile. But look at the map. The Corvani Empire is expanding toward human space. The Stellar Republic controls trade routes we need. The Nexus Collective has resources we want. This isn't about protecting the galaxy from dangerous humans. This is about competition for territory and resources. The Queen leaned forward, interested. Go on, you're not just testing us, Sarah continued. You're testing all of us. You want to see which species can work together, which ones break down under pressure, and which ones try to understand the bigger picture. Dr. Williams nodded. The real test isn't whether we can solve problems. It's whether we can see past our own immediate concerns to understand what's really happening. Lieutenant Torres added. And whether we can adapt our strategy when we realize we're being manipulated. The Queen was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. Very good, Commander Chen. You are correct. This has always been a test of perception, as much as ability. So what's the real situation? Sarah asked. The Queen stood and walked to the window. The galaxy is changing. New species are developing faster than ever before. Resources are becoming scarce. Territory is limited. The old ways of handling these problems aren't working anymore. What old ways? Competition. Domination. One species succeeding at the expense of others. It's creating too much conflict. Too much waste. Sarah felt understanding dawn. You're looking for a new model. A way for species to coexist and thrive together. Exactly. And I needed to test different approaches. The Corvani represent the military model, strength through dominance. The Stellar Republic represents the economic model, success through efficiency. The Nexus Collective represents the political model, power through alliances. And humans? Humans represent something I hadn't seen before. Collaboration without domination, success through helping others succeed. It's unusual. Dr. Williams looked thoughtful. But you needed to be sure it was genuine, not just an act. Yes, anyone can pretend to be cooperative when they know they're being watched, but your team has been consistent even when you thought no one was paying attention. Sarah realized there was still one more layer to understand. Your Majesty, what happens next? You said this was about the galaxy changing. Are you planning to use these tests to make some kind of decision about galactic governance? The Queen returned to her chair. I am considering a proposal to the Galactic Council. A new framework for how species interact with each other. But I need to know it will work. What kind of framework? One based on the human model. Cooperation instead of competition. Shared resources instead of hoarding. Mutual success instead of zero-sum games. Lieutenant Torres frowned. But the other species won't like that. They're used to the old ways. That's why I needed to test them, the Queen said, to see if they could adapt to a new approach, to see if they could learn from the human example. Sarah felt a weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. You're asking humanity to lead this change. I'm asking humanity to teach it, the Queen corrected. There's a difference. What if we're not ready? What if we fail? The Queen smiled sadly. Then the galaxy continues as it has, with species fighting over scraps until resources run out and everyone suffers. Sarah looked at her team. They were scared but determined. She felt proud of them. There's one more test, isn't there? Sarah asked. Yes, the Queen said. The final test. And this one, you cannot prepare for. What is it? The Queen touched a control, and the walls became transparent. Sarah could see the other 3 teams in adjacent chambers, all looking confused and worried. The final test is choice, the Queen said. You must choose which species gets to present their model to the Galactic Council. Only one can be selected. Sarah felt her heart sink. You want us to choose our competitors. I want you to choose the future of the galaxy, the Queen said. Do you choose the human model of cooperation? Or do you choose one of the others and let them lead? Sarah looked at the other teams. They were all looking back at her, waiting for her decision. How long do we have? 1 hour. The Queen said, choose wisely, Commander Chen. The fate of countless worlds depends on your decision. Sarah knew that the real test was about to begin. Sarah stared at the other teams through the transparent walls. Each group looked tense, waiting for her decision. The weight of choosing the galaxy's future felt overwhelming. Commander, Dr. Williams said quietly, what are you thinking? Sarah walked to the center of the room. I'm thinking this is exactly the kind of test a human would design. What do you mean? The Queen expects us to choose ourselves, right? To say that the human model is best and we should lead the galaxy. That's what the other species would do. Lieutenant Torres nodded. The Corvani would choose military strength. The Stellar Republic would choose economic efficiency. But what if that's the wrong answer? Sarah said. What if the real test is whether we can think beyond competition? She turned to face the Queen. Your Majesty, I have a question before I make my choice. Yes? Why does only one species get to present their model? Why can't all 4 approaches work together? The Queen's eyes sparkled with interest. Explain. What do you mean? Sarah took a deep breath. Each species has strengths. The Corvani are excellent at protection and security. The Stellar Republic understands resource management and efficiency. The Nexus Collective knows how to build alliances and solve political problems. Humans seem to be good at bringing everyone together. You're suggesting cooperation between the models? I'm suggesting that the galaxy's problems are too big for any one approach to solve. We need military strength and economic wisdom and political skill and collaborative spirit. Dr. Williams stepped forward. Commander, are you sure about this? If we don't choose the human model, we might lose our chance at independence. Sarah smiled. Dr. Williams, what did we learn yesterday? That humans don't abandon others to save themselves. That we find ways to help everyone succeed. She walked to the wall display and activated it. Your Majesty, instead of choosing one model, I propose we create a demonstration. Let all four teams work together on a real problem. Show the Galactic Council how different approaches can combine into something stronger. The Queen leaned forward. What kind of problem? You mentioned that resources are becoming scarce and species are fighting over territory. Give us a real crisis to solve, something that affects multiple systems, requires different types of expertise, and can only be solved through cooperation. The Queen was quiet for a long moment. Then she touched a control panel. Counselor Zelmuth, please come to the testing chamber. The tall alien entered quickly. Yes, Your Majesty. Activate the crisis simulation. The Dark Star Nebula scenario. Zelmuth. Large eyes widened. Your Majesty, that's not a simulation. That's a real emergency we've been trying to solve for months. Exactly, the Queen said. She turned to Sarah. Commander Chen, you wanted a real problem. 3 solar systems in the Dark Star Nebula are facing destruction. A rogue artificial intelligence has taken control of an ancient weapons system. It's threatening to destroy all life in those systems unless its demands are met. Sarah felt her heart race. What are its demands? It wants exclusive control of the nebula's resources. It claims organic life is inefficient and should be eliminated. How much time do those systems have? 18 hours, the Queen said grimly. My best advisors have been working on this for weeks. With no success, Sarah looked at the other teams. They were listening intently, their competitive attitudes replaced by concern. Your Majesty, Sarah said, if we can solve this crisis together, all 4 teams working as one, will you present our collaborative approach to the Galactic Council? You would risk everything on this gamble. It's not a gamble, Sarah said. It's what humans do. We face impossible problems by working together. The Queen activated the communication system. Sarah could now speak to all 4 teams at once. Everyone can hear me, Sarah asked. The other team leaders nodded. Double quotes good. I'm Commander Sarah Chen of the human delegation. We're facing a real crisis that threatens millions of lives. I propose we forget about competition and work together to save those people. Corvin Commander Exodal spoke first. Human, this is not our fight. Why should we risk our chances for strangers? Because, Sarah said, if we can't work together to save lives, then none of us deserve to lead anything. Stellar Republic Director Valson looked skeptical. Even if we wanted to help, the logistics are impossible. We have different languages, different technologies, different methods. Then we adapt, Sarah said. We learn from each other. Nexus. Collective speaker Gennaro spoke thoughtfully. The human raises an interesting point. Perhaps there is wisdom in this approach. The Queen activated a large display showing the Dark Star Nebula. 3 solar systems appeared, each containing inhabited planets. A massive, dark structure floated between them, the ancient weapons system. The AI calls itself the Archive. The Queen explained, it has control of weapons that can destroy stars. It's demanding that all organic life evacuate the nebula within 18 hours. Sarah studied the display. What do we know about this archive? It's incredibly intelligent but seems to have gaps in its understanding, the Queen said. It knows technology but doesn't understand emotions, cooperation, or sacrifice. Commander Exodal snorted. Then we destroy it with military force. We tried, the Queen said. It's too well defended. Director Valson added, perhaps we can negotiate a resource-sharing agreement. We tried that too, the Queen said. It refuses to share anything. Speaker Gennaro looked thoughtful. What if we combine approaches? Military distraction, economic incentives, and political negotiation all at once? Sarah felt excitement building. That's exactly right. But we need one more element. What? We need to teach it something it doesn't understand. Something only organic life can demonstrate. Dr. Williams looked confused. What could we teach an ancient AI that it doesn't already know? Sarah smiled. The value of cooperation. The strength that comes from working together instead of working alone. She turned to face all the teams. Here's what I propose. We go to the Dark Star Nebula. Not as for competing species, but as one unified team. We show the archive that organic life isn't weak or inefficient. We're adaptable, creative, and stronger together than apart. How do we prove that to a machine? Commander Thexidal asked. By solving a problem it can't solve, Sarah said. By working together to save those solar systems using methods the archive never considered. Lieutenant Torres spoke up. Commander, what if this doesn't work? What if we fail? Sarah looked at her team, then at the other teams, then at the Queen. Then at least we'll fail while trying to save lives instead of just trying to save ourselves. The Queen stood slowly. Commander Chen, are you certain about this path? You're risking not just your own future, but the future of all for species. Your Majesty, Sarah said, the future isn't worth having if we have to abandon our values to get it. The Queen smiled, the first truly warm smile Sarah had seen from her. Very well, I will provide you with a ship and the resources you need. You have 16 hours to reach the Dark Star Nebula and solve this crisis. She paused and looked at all four teams. If you succeed, I will propose your collaborative model to the Galactic Council. If you fail, we won't fail, Sarah said confidently. Not when we're working together. As the teams prepared to leave, Sarah felt a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. They weren't just representing their species anymore. They were representing the possibility of a better future for everyone. The real test was about to begin.